be sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out the merch store.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Let's go build something cool. Alrighty, it's Monday morning. You last saw us on Saturday. But it's time to get some bumper cutting on. I got my PPE, although I am getting ahead of myself because I haven't taken my measurements. So, yeah. The trick with cutting bumpers, we talk about this all the time on Instagram. The trick with cutting bumpers, for our purposes, first thing we've done is strip out the parking sensors, the harness. By the way, do not drop parking sensors. Set them aside. Set them aside. Those things are a couple $100s a piece. You do not want to drop those. Be mindful of the camera. The washer squirters, hopefully we'll be able to reuse those. I don't know, it might get a little tight, might get a little ugly. We'll have to see. Bumper's snugged up. We're real close to the sheet metal right here, so I am going to go ahead and probably trim that or bend that back. It'll be so it doesn't just sit there and rub. That might make a squeak. We don't want to have that kind of problem in our life. I went ahead and left the foamy foam on here just in case. Yeah, headlight squirters are not really gonna work. So I think what we'll wind up doing, I don't know exactly. In all reality, we'll probably wind up just gluing them to the fascia and pinching the line off and unplugging the pump for that side. That is probably the easiest maneuver. It's either that or we got a hack and cut on the bumper. And honestly, headlight squirters aren't that big of a deal in Texas. We don't get snow, so not very often, so it ain't that big of a deal. And we got more lights. And we got Baja designs going on there. But we do want the camera, and we know from our previous fitment that we talked about, the support bar is going to sit essentially right on top of here. Well, where that locks in on the bumper is basically right here. So we're going to wind up cutting the bumper really close. And then the other thing that's going to have to happen is we're going to have to notch up and around, most likely. Hope I'm not making you drunk bouncing back and forth, to fit around the verticals here. This guy. So that is going to be the maneuver, and we're going to make it happen, Captain. So first thing I'm going to do is start with a measurement from the headline to the headlight to the bumper, from the corner to the bumper. We'll figure out this shape kind of after the fact. We need a dimension from here straight along this line down to here, so we can start laying out some tape lines on that guy. I'm going to take measurements and put some tape, and then I'll show you where I'm at. Alrighty, so we got a few dimensions. Corner of the headlight straight down, back 8 inches off the headlight, and then straight down to get a reference point. And then out here we've got our angle shape that we're going for. So I'm going to mark some lines on this guy. The more reference points you have, the better. So don't be afraid to overmark it, and you'll never, ever, ever cut it right the first time. So just plan on leaving it a little long. All right, and this is a deburring tool for like drilling holes and whatnot. Does a really good job of trimming bumpers. So you just drag it along the edge, and it takes all the little hairs off. Doesn't do good for cutting, but it does really good for cleanup. Put a link to Amazon in the description. It is an affiliate link, so we appreciate it. Buying stuff out of our Amazon stuff. We are an affiliate program, so you know, to help support the channel. All right, let's see how far off I am. Probably a good ways. All right, crush fingers, kids. We'll live with that. We're gonna wind up coming up a little bit, right? I don't know. By the time we put that, yeah, looking good. All right, that's bueno. So the problem here is going to be how much room do we have to get past our uprights on our bumper. So we know we got to come over, we're gonna call it 3.5 inches off of the corner of the headlamp. And this thing is 2 inches wide. We're gonna go 3.5 to 5 3/4. And we're gonna come up 2 inches to start. So corner of the headlight, and go 3.5 and 5 1/4. We're gonna come up at least 2 inches, so right there and right there. I'm gonna chop that out of it to begin with. See how it goes from there. So the thing to keep in mind about these bumpers is they're bolted to the frame, and the cab is bolted to the frame on rubber mounts. So what we want to do is we got to have some isolation between the new steel bumper and the grill, because otherwise it's just going to rub and squeak and do funky things. So, and we don't want that. We don't want that at all. So I'm going to start with these heavy duty shears. And give me one of those razor knives. A nice sharp razor blade will cut this stuff. Just score it a few times. And then when we go back and make our final trims, we won't use the grinder. We'll use the razor blade. And we'll see how close we are. This is a very trial and error type process. I wish it was easier, but it's just not. Not if you want it to look good. You can hack the thing where it looks like a drunken beaver cut it. But that ain't my style, man. That ain't what you're paying me for. Try to do it nice. Try to make it pretty. But the good news is, if it's not that pretty, you always just put edge trim on it. Some folks like the edge trim. Some folks like the clean, sharp line. I prefer to start with the clean, sharp line, and then we can always fall back to the edge trim if we have to. Okay, y'all be mindful that the whole reason we're having problems here is because this is a Land Cruiser bumper on an LX. It'll work, just takes a while. This GoPro battery is running low, so we're gonna go plug it in, swap it out, whatever it is we gotta do there. And I'm gonna kinda keep doing what I'm doing here, and I'll be right back, show you kinda where we're at. Well, it's been a combination of myself and Tricky Ricky Bobby, getting things trimmed up. Race car Ricky over here. Anyway, so we got this thing all kinda tidied up and whatnot. We might open this up just a little bit more on this side, because like I said, bumper will shake a little. No worries. All right, winch is wired with power and ground. Grill is in. We got that all snapped back in. Okie dokie. One of the other little projects that we've got on this rig is this here Sherpa roof rack. This is Sherpa rack. We picked this up from our homies at CB Adventure Supply. Shout out to Ryan and Libby and the crew. They are a stocking dealer for these guys, and we are not direct with them, so I bought it from them. We got to flip this thing over and get it mounted up on top. While we were in the process of getting things off of here, we ran into a little trouble right here. Yeah, these are what the dilly bobbers up inside the headliner look like. So Ricky, even with all his trimming experience, had to learn a little lesson about how to take these bolts out. So the threaded insert, as you guys can see, we've already put the new one in. I had to pop this out right here. Trick is, even though the instructions don't say anything about it, and I forgot to tell the guys, make sure you loosen both bolts before you take both bolts out. Otherwise, you're gonna wind up with this mangled up mess, which it was way worse than this. Anyways, things went sideways, but I got it under control. No worries. So we're gonna mount this thing up on top. We gotta put some silicone on there to pookie it up, make sure we don't have a problem with leakages.
It's as big as my head.
Check out these beautiful babies right here. Those are pretty cool. I actually spec'd the Baja Designs Squadron Sports on this one. And then I was like, hey, you want to upgrade to the LP4s? And the customer's son, who this is now for, he's handing it down to him, which is why we're doing cool mods. He was like, no, I don't like LP4s. I don't like the way they look. I want ARBs. And so we talked about doing the 36 ones, the bigs. And after looking at those, and I sent him some pictures, I was like, hey, here's how big the 21s are, and here's how big the 36s are. This is 7.5 inches. This is 8 5/8. Yeah, 8 5/8, not 9, which is what the 36s are. I'll be completely honest with you. For the output, I don't think they're worth the money and the real estate. They're too big. They're just too large. The other thing about them is you run one spot pattern and one flood pattern. This one, see, flood. This one says spot. So, I don't really have a problem with it, but I just kind of think it's weird. But you know, that's how they do things down under. I will tell you the wiring situation, pretty freaking cool. Has a dimmer. So if you're running these off of an S-Pod or something along those lines, probably not your first choice in lighting. You can build your own harness and do all that, but this is freaking sweet. So the ARB button is the power, and then you got 100%, 75, 25, 100, 75, 50, 25, and 5%, which they are about 6,000 lumens each. I think the flood is 6, and the spot is 6,100, and the flood is 6, vice versa, whatever. You know, at 5%, you're looking at 600 lumens, which is like a killer flashlight, like a good Streamlight or a Surefire or something like that. So that's pretty cool that you can adjust it in the harness if you're not adding a bunch of auxiliary circuits and you want to kind of run it solo. I like it. Nice, hit the floor. As long as you like the form factor. This is the LP4. I'm a big fan of these. So depending upon what you're after, so you've got 7,050 lumen forward, plus you've got the side shooters out of 4 emitters, or you've got 6,000 out of 21 emitters. All right, let's talk about price and form factor. So you're looking about $800 for a pair of these with a harness. You're looking about $550 for these with a harness. 6,000 lumens per, 7,000 lumens per in a smaller form factor. The 36s are more comparable. They're like $750 with the harness, but it does have the cool dimmer thing. So, you know, there's trade-offs there. If you want more than 2, Baja Designs may be the way to go on the LP4s. But you can also get the LP6 and the LP9. You go to a 9-inch, which is the same form factor as the ARB, and you're spending less money for substantially more output. Overlanding light, race light. Just depends on what you want to do. They're both quality products. I got no problem with either one of them. It's kind of your choice. Customer likes this form factor. He's the one writing the check. If you got a problem with it, jump in the comments and offer to pay for his lights. I'm sure he'd love that. All right, I'm gonna get this stuff wired up. We've also got to wire up our fog lights and turn signals because those need to be done. And then we got to go get our tires mounted up, and I got to put the undercovers on and trim the fender liners. Alrighty, we got some connections made. Things are bundled up pretty good in here, leaving plenty of access to get to the clutch for the winch. Everything's tied in relatively pretty. This is tied up nicely. This is our control cable. I think we're ready to test it. I like auxiliary lighting to basically be constant hot. I don't like having to run high beams and stuff, because sometimes I just want to turn them on for a few minutes and like light up an area or something like that. There you go, kids. Full power, 75, 50, 25, 5%. Well, after a little check-in and whatnot, linking the coral and the yellow wire right here linked together. We're going to keep our same ground, and then I'm just going to positive hot, actually right over here, to get us set up for our ARB lights working. They are functioning properly. Moving on to the marker lights. This marker light is cool, but it has 2 white functions and a yellow function. On this particular year model, this car, this is already a turn signal. This is a marker light. I do not want the white light to come on. Here's why. The way it's going to function, the white light will come on with the DRL, but the DRL is right up in here, this little 194, and it stays on, which means you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 4 light law in Texas. So those are for off-road use only, not my problem. Use them at your own discretion. These coming on in white, not yellow, is going to be a problem. So we're going to wire these where they're only yellow and they don't blink. In order to do that, we're going to run to this green wire and a ground, and that's it. That's all we got to have. Same thing on the other side. We've already pin tested and checked it and done all that fun stuff. The green wire, we're just going to strip that back. We're going to make a butt splice in there with a little heat shrink to our little harness and be all set. Now, because of our space restrictions with the bumper, we used 3M VHB tape and stuck the little covers back down, so those will stay on and those shouldn't be a problem. And I disconnected the headlight washer pump because the things just flat don't fit with this bumper. Nobody really uses them anyway, so not a big deal. But what is a big deal is it's going to leak, and it's going to just puke all your washer fluid out. Here's the trick. You might think it's slightly janky. That's your opinion, man. I don't have a better way to plug it without just like hacking a bolt in. But here's the deal. The headlight squirter has it. It's male on one end, it's female on the other. So if you put that like that, this thing keeps it locked off and keeps it from leaking. So that's what we're doing, and we zip tied it out of the way. That way, if it does leak, it's just going to leak down low. Just if it ever does, it'll leak down low, and then we don't have to worry about wetness getting on any components like soaking our winch or anything stupid like that. That's the plan. We're going to make this junction. We're going to pull stuff through the grommet right back there next to the master cylinder, that little guy right there, and we got work to do. If you guys feel like you want to watch me do wiring and stuff, jump in the comments and tell us. We need that engagement. We need to know what you want to watch, so tell me. Well, it's been the weekend and now we're back. We got our lights mounted as we discussed. I did make a executive decision to change our wiring program. I wound up coming down here and tapping into the high beam because these things are so ridiculously bright. I have found that there are times when you're driving down country roads and you've got your big boy lights turned on, and then you see somebody coming around the bend and you want to be able to knock those down, like just turn them off, right? You want to shut them off. The most intuitive way to do that is with the high beam. So, you know, if you've got the Squadron SAEs, a street legal light, if you've got something that's in the 2,500 lumen range or so, you know, you're not gonna hurt somebody. Like, you're not gonna blind them. Like, they might be mildly annoyed with you. And it is technically probably illegal, but that's not my business. But when you've got 12,000 lumens, being able to trigger off of the high beam switch and to disable that light very quickly. I discovered this once we started putting really high-end stuff on customer cars and using switch panel systems. And like our Expedition, Steve was with me riding back from the Texas Avid Outdoors Overland Expo a couple years ago, and I had to ride like this because we had the panel in the overhead to turn the big bar off and on. So now when we do the Switch Pro type system, which is one of my favorites, and the S-Pod system, which is also another one of my favorites, I like the big lights to be able to, I like to be able to turn them on when you want them, but I like them to be able to enabled and disabled with the high beam on the turn signal stalk. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Next thing's next. Client had this Lanfus sound alert. We'll put a link in the Amazon description just in case you're curious. It is like a police PA type system, and it's getting installed. So we chased our ARB wire. It's the one with the plug on it right there next to the ratchet. This is our harness. We got power, ground, and green wires for the speaker. Normally you would not want to twist those up with power and ground, but I'll be honest with you, it's a PA for yelling at cows. It's not for anything else. So we got the interior somewhat taken apart. This is pretty common as far as getting in this area to like change out a radio or something like that. Harken back to my days as a Lexus tech. Also, this is taken apart back here because I wanted to get to these screws right here because I need to be able to pick this console up. So anyways, it's all about getting the wires in there. We're mounting it in the console because I'm picky and I don't want that thing just, chilling on the dash. They were like, oh, put it down by my knee. And I'm like, no, not happening. So it's going in the console. It's going to go right here. We're going to drill a hole through the bottom. I am not going to pass the giant connector through the hole. We're just going to run the harness through there, and we'll put some foam on it so that it works like it's supposed to. It'll come out that corner, come down under the seat, under the rocker trim, and then up underneath, way up under there. On the Land Cruisers and the LXs, there is a grommet. It's the one we went through right here. It's got a nippular region where you pull this wire through. You can just cut that off, and I use foaming glass cleaner as a lubricant on my pulling. In this instance, we use a piece of TIG wire and fed it through. It's easier to go that way than it is to go that way. It gets really tight in there next to the side. So there's that little tech tip. Alrighty, our LX is pretty much wrapped up. Actually, it is wrapped up. It's all done. Check it out. PA. Also. So we got the box all mounted down in here, and we got the mic where it hangs there. That way he can yell at his cows or whatever it is he's doing. Let's do a little walk around, guys. Let's check it out, check it out, check it out. I got the Method 305s in triple black. Black bolts, black bead lock rings, bead locky rings. Low boy center caps. Dobinson's bumper. Dobinson's fog lights. ARB Intensity 21s. We got the Warn winch chilling down inside. You can reach right here to engage and disengage the clutch. Everything's all tidied up under the hood and lovely. I do need to trim the mud flap just a little bit. Got our Sherpa rack. And while we were at it, big truck, there we go. While we were at it, we noticed that the air conditioning wasn't cooling very well at idle, so I went ahead and did an evac and recharge. It was down about a half a pound, blowing ice cold. You can cut glass now. So tires are 285, 65, 18 BF Goodrich all-terrain TAs. We barely tweaked the height sensors just a little bit, just to raise the normal position. I don't want to mess up the pressures in the AHC system. He's already, I think we touched on this, but he's already replaced one shock on the AHC not too long ago. So the system's working properly. If it was inoperable, or if we had like 2 shocks that we had to get, had a problem with, I would have just gutted the whole system and gone in with Dobinson's IMS or MRR's. Probably IMS, really, for what they're using it for. This is a daily driver for his son. My buddy Hayden's been running this for several years now, but his kiddo's going to be cruising this, out hitting the ranch, bumping gates, making things happen. If we can do anything like this for you, be sure to shoot us an email, sales@CodyCrafted.com, and we sure appreciate you. Check out the merch store. Just remember, kids, there's no such thing as a bolt-on. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next one.